This is going to sound like so much hate, and I swear it's not. Welcome back to the Warner Brothers podcast. Once again, I'm Kyle, joined by my brother Keenan. Part one of this episode of the podcast was us reviewing two All-Star Weekend and the atrocity that was. Part two, we're going to lighten up the mood. We're going to get back to positives. We're going to get back to real NBA talk and do some predictions or just do some forecasting of, I don't even want to call it the second half because we're past the second half of the season. It's like the stretch run. So this is like third base going into home before the playoffs. But we're going to forecast the post All-Star break NBA. Keenan, any initial thoughts or proclamations or questions, anything you got before I get into some of these predictions that I have?
No, not at all. I believe that there's probably, I could see about 6 to 7 teams, like in the perfect world, holding up a trophy this year. About roughly.
Can you give me those 6 or 7?
Boston, New York, Cleveland. It would shock me if Milwaukee did, so I'll have them kind of on the outskirts. Oklahoma City, Denver, and I'm getting there with the Warriors, and I don't think it would be this year with the Lakers, but I'm getting there with the Warriors. But really right now it'd be OKC, Denver, Cleveland, Boston, New York, and then like Milwaukee, Golden State, maybe LA, and then I don't know how I feel about the Grizzlies holding the trophy yet. Those would be the teams.
I'd feel better about the Grizzlies as opposed to the Lakers. Again, I can't. That's a in progress team. They would have already been a question mark for me with Mark Williams, given his injury history, given his lack of defensive prowess. And then you take him away because he's actually a threat on offense. You take him away and you're giving me Jackson Hayes. And, who's backing him up? Who's behind Jackson Hayes? We got, is it Christian Wood? And he might have just went out for the season.
Yeah, they don't really have a big. They don't. They have to get someone in the buyout market if they get a big at all, or sign a guy.
Yeah, in a season where you got to get like at times 8 straight stops, I can't see it for the Lakers, even as sleeper capacity for LA right now. So I with you, and we said this on the last one, I'd have Golden State ahead of them right now, and I'd probably feel a little better about Memphis than LA right now, and even the Clippers than the Lakers right now, just because you can get stops, just because you can create consistent offense now too with them.
It's hard for me to put faith in Kawhi.
Exactly. It's the Kawhi factor. It'll always be the Kawhi factor, but they seem to be stringing him along. I think his last game before the break, he had 25. So we'll see. He started, I believe, in January was when he came back. So, you'll have a lot less regular season wear and tear on him. And I've never seen it in my life, Keenan, anybody who's able to miss as much time as he does. Come back, looks a little rusty, but once he hits his rhythm, he looks like the old Kawhi. He's got the athleticism. He's got the first step. He can defend. I don't understand where it comes from or how or why he is the cyborg that he is when he comes back from injury, but he's got it. He doesn't look washed. He doesn't look like he loses his lift. It's pretty incredible, honestly. But interesting. So my question to you about the Knicks, because we're almost certainly going to get Boston versus the Knicks in the second round. What shot do you give them to upset what would technically be an upset because they wouldn't have home court advantage? So I won't even say upset. What percentage do you give them to actually beat the defending champion Boston Celtics?
25%. I actually think Boston matches up with them well. That's the problem.
That's my thing. I think it's a perfect matchup for the Celtics.
I think they match up with them really well. I mean, you saw it when Tatum got 40 the other night when they played the Knicks. They won like 131 to 104. And the thing about the Knicks is they can run a 5-out, especially with how well Cat's been playing. And those Celtics have the lineup to match it. They have the size, they have the athleticism, they have the quickness. They can match up defensively with every position, and then offensively, they can exploit the mismatches that the Knicks are going to have. So 25%. I think that's I think it's a solid chance because they have grit, they have toughness, they have superstar caliber players. If you want to count Brunson a superstar, fine. Like they have, you have that, you have Towns, you have OG, you have Mikal Bridges, who's ever since his Christmas Day bonanza has been playing better basketball. It's just, I think Boston matches up too well with them. So I would give them 25. I'd probably have Boston in 6.
I think I agree with you. I think it would be a 7-game series, especially if the Knicks could stay healthy, unlike last postseason. Um, I really worry about the Knicks. I love everything that's been going on with them for the last few seasons, including this season. I think Cat has just seamlessly fit in with the Knicks. Um, Again, we just talked about it. He's upped his game completely on another level since last season, since his Minnesota portion of his career. That's gone as well as you could possibly have it. You're eventually going to get Mitchell Robinson back, I would hope. It just feels like they're one player short. Feels like they're like one bench guy short, and maybe they get someone on the buyout market, but I don't know. I would like their chances better against Cleveland than I would against the Celtics themselves. The Celtics are just too big. I mean, their lead guards being Derek White and Drew Holiday, and they can just hone in on a Jalen Brunson. And you couple that with the minutes they play in the regular season, where Brunson and Hart and Cat, they're already playing high 30s. They're already playing 40 plus minutes a game. Josh Hart, all these guys. Whereas the Celtics, they can play throughout a 2 or 3 week period. They're going to play 12 to 14 guys. They just got Torrey Craig, which is a great addition. They're easing Porzingis in. Porzingis is playing really well. That's going to be tough for anyone in the East to beat, let alone the Knicks. So next year is the year for the conference finals for the Knicks, based off the standings, because that 2-3 matchup is going to be tough.
The only way they get to the conference finals is if the Cavs start to fall off a touch and Boston goes on a heater. It's the only way they get to the conference finals. They have to see Cleveland.
Because Boston, I think they're going to stay the same. There's a chance that Knicks usurp them. I think they're only a game apart. There's a chance the Knicks could get home court in that case.
It doesn't make a difference to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference to me. But that would be like the one advantage you'd get if they can hop them and get the second seed. Then maybe you can put a little more pressure because you're playing from essentially ahead if you got home court advantage and you're up 1-0.
I watched Tatum go and score, I think, 48 in a game 6 or 46 in a game 6 in Milwaukee down 3-2.
For sure.
So
you're not going to get a more postseason. You're not going to get a more seasoned postseason team than the Celtics. They've been playing. Their core has been playing in big games since they were NBA babies. So there's not much you could throw at them. But that would be the thing. If you're the Knicks, you'd want to get the 2. Cleveland, I don't see taking a step back at all. So I think the one's theirs. Yeah, I think for sure we're heading for Cleveland and Boston in the conference finals. But I think Giannis is going to have something to say. Dame's had a much better season than last season, quietly. Giannis is still Giannis.
I think the Bucks match up kind of well with the Cavs. I think like they have pieces to kind of. I think the Bucks can match the Cavs because they have. I mean, not that they'd be. Because you have Giannis, you have Brook Lopez, so you have you have some size to deal with the size of the Cavs, which is what a lot of teams don't have. Is the Cavs have versatile size, especially with the way Evan Mobley's been shooting the ball and playing this season. So they have versatile size, but I think that the Bucks actually can match up with them pretty well, and with the level that Giannis is playing at, anything's possible. Especially if you get a locked-in Dame that's been playing better basketball too here, so. I think
Kuzma in their depth's the X factor. Kuzma in their depth, but I could see the Bucks. Depending on how it breaks, I could see them making a little bit of a run too.
I don't see a world where that's not your Final Four, unless the Bucks for some reason drop to the 6. But if those are your top 4, your top 5 seeds, I don't see a world where that's not your Final Four. I don't see the Pacers upsetting the Bucks or the Knicks being upset by the Pistons. Boston's not losing in the first round, and Cleveland's not losing in the first round. So, like, as long as the Bucks stays, as long as the Bucks stay healthy and they don't fall to the 6 line for some reason, or they have to see the Knicks, I think that Milwaukee, Boston, Cleveland, and New York will be your Final Four in the East.
Yeah, I mean Philly in theory could sneak into the playoffs, and then they would be they'd be the one. No, sure, I'm just saying in theory they would be the one that
I know. Nope.
They would be the one that would have the talent and have the depth too. But I mean, they just have not gotten their shit together at all this season.
Nope.
And I will actually talk more about them.
Not a chance.
Going forward.
Not a chance.
Nothing's happened well for them. I mean, Embiid's been a whole saga for them. Obviously, Paul George might be the worst contract in the NBA, and I forget what the stat is. I don't have the exact stat, but the amount of games and minutes that Embiid, Maxey, and Paul George have played together this year, it's less than 6 games. I think I want to say it's 5 games or less they've played together. And a couple of them, they didn't even finish out. Like someone left the game with injury. So they have not played, I don't think, more than, again, this is just a freestyle off the head. I think they haven't played more than like 3 or 4 games together in full. And it could be more, it could be less, but it's a low number is the point here.
Yeah.
That's a shame. Luckily.
I can't even find it. I can't find it. I was trying to see if I could find it. Embiid and George have played a combined 337 minutes together. That's just Embiid and George, not even fully with Maxey, but that's not much at all. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sad situation over there. It's not good. It's not pretty. Luckily, the Eagles won the Super Bowl for the city of Philadelphia, because otherwise that would be a very angry city, more so than they run hot. They run hot already. They would be even more of an angry city if Philly were to have lost that Super Bowl, on top of what's going on with the Sixers, the shit show that they are. And then the West, Keenan. I mean, I know you said like OKC is your favorite, but who else? You gave us not Memphis.
OKC is my favorite. I think the Nuggets are right there. The way the Nuggets hinder on Jamal Murray. Jokic, I guess you kind of constant.
What? It was this show, right? Where maybe you started with the West. My bad. So I might have you.
No, it's OKC, Denver, Golden State, and then possibly LA and Memphis. But
true, yeah.
Oh, but right now in the Eastern Conference, Western Conference, I think the Warriors want to avoid Denver until their last possible moment. I actually think they match up with the Thunder better than they do the Nuggets. They actually are 2-1 this year against the Thunder. One of them, I think, was maybe even without Steph, possibly, but they can match up with the Thunder, and it's because the Thunder don't kill you with size. They have size, obviously, in Chet and Hartenstein, but like they don't kill you with size, as where the Nuggets can kill you with the Jokic being Jokic. They haven't beat Jokic since 2022, so. It's just, I think they would want to avoid Denver as much as possible, obviously. I mean, for them, it's their only goal for them is to get to the 6th seed, and whoever they play, they play. Like, don't just avoid the play-in for the Warriors, and I think they can get that done. But
I think the Warriors ultimately will get the 6th seed. I think they end up at the 6th.
And I think they probably see Memphis in the first round. I think Denver's probably going to be the 2. I think the OKC will end up 1, and then I think Memphis will probably end up the 3. In a Warriors Memphis matchup, I actually would favor the Warriors right now, but I think that's a 7-game tough drag out series, and that's Memphis easily could win.
That's an amazing first round. Yeah, I don't know who would win. You'd favor the Warriors just off of like being there, been there, done that. Grizzlies, and
Jimmy looks good.
Jimmy looks good. Jimmy looks good. If you get quality Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy Butler in a 7-game series, which we have no reason to think you wouldn't, that would be very tough for Memphis to overcome. Granted, I mean, who's guarding Ja? I guess you could throw Jimmy on him for a little bit, but Ja has routinely torched the Warriors. But the thing with Ja is he seems like he can't play 2 straight weeks of basketball. He sits a lot for whatever reason. But that's a deep team over there in Memphis. That's a talented team. They've been in the playoffs too, but I think I agree with you. I think I would favor the Warriors with the addition of Jimmy Butler at this moment.
Yeah, but I think It's most likely a collision course between the Thunder and the Nuggets in the Western Conference Finals to me right now. It's all matchup dependent. Like,
Can
I
I tell
think
you
the
something?
Warriors. Yeah, what's up?
Can I think I would favor. I think I like the Nuggets in that series a little bit more than I like the Thunder. I think I would take the Nuggets. Gun to my head, I think I would take the Nuggets over the Thunder.
I
Thunder
think I would
worry me
lead.
that they Thunder are clearly the best team in the league right now and clearly the best defensive team. And I think Boston can get there defensively in the playoffs the way OKC plays it. They consistently play amazing defense. What worries me about them, though, they do not have a true second creator. And you need a second creator. We just talked about that with the Warriors, right? Them getting Jimmy
Mm-hmm.
Butler, how he opens everything up for Steph. Who's the other guy in those 8 minutes that SGA is not in the
It's got
game?
to be Chet or it's got to be Jalen Williams.
It's got to
It's
be. You're
got it.
right. It's got to be.
It's
But
got to be one of
will
those
they?
two.
Can they? That's the real
But
question. When you got
that is the question. That's what it comes down to. Because last year they didn't have one, and it was Shea or bust, and that's why they didn't manage to get too farther. But
so I
I
low
mean,
key,
we
I think
know
they get to the
Shea's gonna.
conference finals. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And I was just saying, we know Shea's showing up, but like,
Mhm.
and with the Nuggets too, that was their problem last year. Is they didn't have a true second shot creator because Jamal Murray just wasn't playing high level basketball. But if this Jamal Murray's showing up, that's when the Nuggets are close to unbeatable because Jokic is the perfect offensive player.
And
He doesn't do
Jamal
it.
showed up in that game 7 too. Don't forget, he showed up in that T Bulls game 7. He
Mm-hmm.
produced.
Oh yeah, no,
Second half they just
he's had
kind of
he had moments. He had moments throughout the playoffs where he played, but he didn't have like legitimate. He didn't have legitimate like a good series at all. But he did have his moments. Obviously, big shots against the Lakers, a couple of them, and then he did play really well, especially in that first half of the game 7 against the Timberwolves.
for sure, for sure. You're right though. I mean, Jamal Murray, he's like officially back now. We dropped 55, obviously before the break. Uh, they've won 8 straight, and if you're gonna get that Jamal Murray with, I mean, come on, Jokic is the best player in the world, but then you got Westbrook who can create shots for you, and you got Michael
Mm-hmm.
Porter who can
Yep.
at least hit shots for you.
Yep.
So you got 4 guys there who can get you a bucket. Aaron Gordon isn't even playing right now in the midst of the streak, so they'll be getting him back. Their young guys are playing well. Um, I just don't see them fearing OKC, especially
No.
when, again, if they had a legitimate second scorer, even a guy off the bench who can just come in and fill it up, they don't really got that. Chet's back. He's missed the
No.
majority of the season, or at least half the season, it seems like. And I don't know if he's really, you know, clear out, guys. I'm gonna go get you 12 in this quarter, in the third quarter of a game 6 against Denver. I don't think Chet's got that in him yet. I don't think Jalen Williams got that in him yet. SGA for sure has got that, but I think they're one guy short, or maybe just 1 year short. You know what I mean? Jalen Williams or Chet could be that next year, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
2 years from now. Right now, though, I would just give the edge to Denver. Um, in the same way, I would give that edge to Boston, maybe over Cleveland. Like it's hard for me
Yeah.
to see
No, I
anyone
would.
beating Boston at
I
their best, but I do think Cleveland is right there with them. Cleveland is
so
right there.
at their best, I think the Thunder can compete with Boston. I just think they match up with them very well.
Sure. I
But
was talking
then,
strictly the East. I
no,
was
no,
talking
no.
about the East,
Eastern
but I
Con.
get
No,
what
I
you're
know what you're
saying.
saying. But you're right. That's the thing about the Knicks that you give from a little over Cleveland is how good will Darius Garland be in the playoffs? Because he's really your second creator. Like Mobley can get a shot if need be, but he's kind of got to have it created, and then a little bit he's got more post moves than you. Like he's actually got some post moves he can face up and things, but like is Garland going to be able to create shots for that team at a level? Because we know Donovan's going to in the playoffs. He's done it year in and year out, and that's where the Knicks is they have Brunson and Towns is showing to he can get his own offense plus create like be great off of other people's offense. So like that's where the Knicks may have even a slight edge over the Cleveland Cavs, but Cleveland defensively they're nice. So they're
Cle-
really nice defensively.
Cleveland defensively and Cleveland all around, especially with this DeAndre
Oh
Hunter
yeah, yeah,
trade.
yeah.
They just balance their team even more.
Mm-hmm.
They can get it done on both ends. They're
Yeah.
expertly coached. He's getting the most out of all their talents. You just thing I love about Boston, I always go back to it whenever I think about Cleveland or New York or OKC, I guess. And you're right. It's weird. OKC, I don't like the fact that, again, they don't have a second scorer, but I do like them better against Boston than I do against Denver. I agree with you. I think they match up well against Boston. But the thing with Boston for me is their size at each position. And now this addition of Torrey Craig, who might not get many minutes in the playoffs, but he's just another guy you can throw out there who's 6'6", 6'8", long arms, can defend. Your guards are big. And then your one guy off the bench who does not have size can just fill it up and will fill it up in the postseason. He's either going to spot up and hit threes or get his own shots. He's instant offense off the bench. So, and Peyton Pritchard. It's hard for me to just, I don't know. If you're going to get locked in, and that's clearly what the Celtics are at, that's why they're the 2 right now, is because they kind of took a couple weeks off here in December and January. But postseason time, when Jason and Jalen and Derek White and Drew Holiday and Porzingis are all locked in, how are you going to consecutively and consistently score on that team? I don't know. That's hard for me to imagine.
Comes
again,
down
Cleveland,
to Jason. When Jason Tatum, because Jaylen Brown's typically always aggressive, and Jaylen Brown will give you like spurts of greatness. He doesn't always do it for a full game, but he will give you like in spurts. When Jason Tatum is, it's weird how he's the best player and somehow to me sometimes the X factor. Like when Jason Tatum is locked in and aggressive, this team is almost unbeatable. When Jason Tatum is playing just like a passive game, it's when the Celtics are able to be got. But like when Jason Tatum is 32, 14, and 7, like he was against San Antonio the last game, they're close to unbeatable because they just
and
he just opens up everything. He's been great. Like, don't get me wrong, but like
I don't think you ever really get a passive Jason Tatum in the postseason, especially. I can't really think of many games where he's been passive.
He has some. He's had some. Like, hasn't been really much over the last couple of years. Like we know in the finals and against the Warriors, he was a little bit. And I don't know. There's some moments where I feel like he can be passive, but other than like he just by passive, I don't more so mean like he's like afraid of the ball. I just mean like he's not. He just will stand in the corner and his other teammates do. I mean, his teammates are great. Don't get me wrong.
I've never.
But
I mean,
like,
remember, I'm a retired Celtics fan, so I mean, I saw a lot of his critical moments. I never had that critique of him. Aggressiveness was never my thing with Tatum. My thing, what I think he's cleaned up, was his 3-point shot. His shooting was atrocious. He'd have these games where he was just like 8 for 25, you know? And I think, his 3-point shooting has been much more consistent this year than the last 2 years. So when you couple that in on top, if we're getting what we've been getting, which is like 6 for 12, Jason Tatum from 3-point land, that's troublesome for the NBA. And I think it's troublesome in general with this week off. Now that they're going to get Derek White a little more healthy, Drew Holiday a little more healthy, giving Porzingis some extra time off. I think you're really going to see something from the Celtics this second half, and of course going into the postseason. Not too worried about them. Not too worried about them or the Cavs. Knicks will be interesting, but I do have, like we just talked about, I think the Knicks eventually will be a second round exit, but they're going to be fun. They're going to be fun. Let me see if I got anything else in the East, because, well, we could go all over. So Warriors being my 6th seed, that's one of my predictions. We just talked about that. This one's light. We're going to get this game in a couple of weeks, but when Luka has his first game against the Mavs, I'm just setting the bar at 50. I'm setting the bar at 45, actually, but I'm expecting a 50-point outcome from Luka in that game. Possibly if LeBron wasn't on the team, or if LeBron were to sit that night, I would say 70 from Luka in that game. Like all bets are off in that game, but I think he's gonna go like for the throat. He's gonna go for the jugular.
He's scoring 20 plus in the first quarter.
I could
Not
see
a
it.
doubt in my head.
I could
20
see
plus in the first.
He's
just gonna. Bad. He's going to instant like the first possession. It might be a pick and roll switch, and he'll have Anthony Davis on him like 1v1 and go at him. Like I truly think that he might attack Anthony Davis. And I hope Nico's in the building for some reason, and I want Luka to point at him like Reggie did to Spike. Like, this is your fault. Like, this is on
Luka's a sicko, so he would probably do somehow more than that. You might like go up to Nico face to face and cuss him out. I feel
Like, listen,
I don't know if I felt this awful for a fan base. Like I felt bad for the Jets when Aaron Rodgers went down week 1 of last
yeah,
year. I don't know if I've ever
yeah,
felt this terrible for a fan base where they just gave up on a clear franchise player. Like nobody would do this. Nobody would do
no,
this.
not
And
at all.
Nico Harrison decided, like you said, here, we'll just trade away our franchise. Though I do really like their roster. I really do love their roster with AD and Kyrie and what they got with the balance. But second thing, Keenan, I forgot to mention this in the All-Star Game podcast. I don't know if you know this, Keenan. Anthony Davis has a prank show.
Anthony Davis, what? Sorry.
He has a prank show,
No, I
like
had no idea.
punk style prank show, right? And
I had no idea.
my guess is you're probably thinking, why the hell does Anthony Davis have a prank show?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was my thoughts too. I was like, why would Anthony Davis have a prank show? I've never thought of him as a funny athlete.
That doesn't even
Seems-
make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Seems really forced. And it just happened to be on after the All-Star game last night. And it was two things. A, it was actually kind of good. It wasn't bad. It wasn't cringe, which I thought it was definitely going to be. It's pretty good. And B, that caught my attention more than the All-Star game. I meant to say that in the last podcast. It definitely caught my attention more than the All-Star game. That should never happen. But surprisingly good. Check it out. It's kind of corny. He says, because I think it's called like double play or Anthony Davis's play. I don't know what the hell it's called, but he comes out and says, you got played, kind of like you got punked back in the day. So that part's corny, but it's actually a good show and kind of seems genuine. And he's actually shows his personality way more than he does on the court. So it's kind of interesting. It's not bad at all. Shouts to Anthony Davis because I had extremely low expectations for it. And I stumbled into it. But yeah, man, I think Luka, just going back to that, between 45 and 60 is fair. And I think he's going to try for it, which is like probably when it's the hardest to score that many points is when you're actively trying to score 60 points on a team because that's hard. But man, if anybody could do it, it's Luka Doncic. I mean, just we talk about his weight, and they made a point to talk about his weight. Sit his ass in the post and just let him bully whoever's guarding him because ain't nobody going to be able to hold him. I don't know if they're going to put Clay on him or whoever's going to be guarding him, but that's
Doesn't make a difference.
it does not make a difference. That's barbecue chicken. That's Food City. That's all the above. So, yeah, Luke is going off in that game.
Yeah,
for sure. And I think they get him again like 2 weeks after that. So, again,
I
I feel that's going to be the most awkward coming home party, or the homecoming, you should say. Luka going back to Dallas because, I mean, they just had the rug pulled out from under him. You know what I mean?
I don't know if he's gonna get like. Yeah, I think he's gonna get like a standing ovation, but I also think people will be crying. Like I
think I completely agree with you. I think people are
like,
going to be crying and in shock.
Like I don't know. Like I don't think like when Clay came back to Golden State, it was like appreciation. You've been here. You won 4 championships. Like you've been one of the greatest Warriors we've ever had. So it was like we're celebrating this. Like with Luka, it's like a relationship that like you broke up with me. Like I didn't even choose this. Like I didn't even ask for it. Like so like I think people are just gonna be like clapping,
Keenan,
but I don't think it's
Keenan.
gonna be a crazy. I don't know if it's gonna be a crazy ovation because I think people are just gonna be sad.
Can you just said like, oh, you broke up with me, like a surprising breakup? I can't even compare it to that. I can't even say this isn't even the Mavs getting cheated on, right? In this scenario, like if it's you, Keenan, this would be like your fiance getting kidnapped by her parents and then just shipped off to like Russia. That's what happened here. That's what happened with the Mavs. Imagine how shocked you would be if you just woke up and, oh, my fiance's not only gone, but like no one told me about it. They just left me a note saying she shipped to Russia and you'll never see her again. You would be beyond shocked like, still 3 weeks later.
And then a month later, we have to sit in like the same like class or something together. Just like something.
A month later, you have to do a Zoom phone call where you're like going over. I don't know. I can't even. That's how bizarre this is. Yeah, but a month later, you have to see her and sit down with her and her family and her new boyfriend that's in this arranged marriage. Maybe that would be the case. They ship her off to Russia or wherever they do arranged marriages. Actually, I don't think they do that in Russia, but
I don't know.
Whatever. We're making up a insane scenario because that's exactly what this whole shit is an insane scenario. I still, Keenan, 2 weeks later, I think this weekend will be 3 full weeks. I still can't believe it. I am still in shock. I am still still have no explanation for what really precipitated this trade. What the cost? I mean, we know what the cost for it is. It's essentially that Luka was a dick behind the scenes and is lazy. Okay, I don't think that warrants a trade. I don't think it warrants the package that they got. But 2.5 weeks later, I am still in shock. I can't imagine how Mavs fans feel. I need a documentary on this sometime after Luka retires. I absolutely need a documentary on this trade.
Kyle, could you imagine the Patriots trading Brady after like the 07 season? Like say he doesn't get injured the first year, like they just traded him after the 07 season.
Can you imagine if the Commanders traded Jaden Daniels
right now?
Now, or like if he had an off, let's say like they missed the playoffs by a game next year, or if they got eliminated in the first round, it'd be like the Commanders just giving up on Jaden Daniels and just giving him to the Eagles, or it kind of would be like giving him to the Eagles for Jalen Hurts. Like, okay, yeah, we got a quality quarterback back, but you just gave away our whole future for what?
It'd be the Lions for Jared Goff. The Lions for Jared Goff, essentially. Because you'd be getting an older guy who can still play, don't get me wrong. But a guy who right now people would argue
Stafford.
Jaden's better than Jared. Or Jesus.
He's a little more. We got to give a little more quality for Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
No shots like Jared Goff. But no, yeah, I mean, it's one of those trades. It's just, it's confounding.
Be insane.
It's confounding.
It'd be insane. But
going back to the Clippers, though, Keenan, I do think we get some sort of Ben Simmons renaissance. And the only reason why I say that is because once upon a time when this drama first happened with Philly and he was asking out of Philly and he was saying he couldn't play basketball for mental health reasons and X, Y, and Z, the 3 teams he wanted to go to, really the 4 teams I guess he wanted to go to, was the Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings, and I'm assuming the Warriors. He wanted to go to clearly a warm weather place. He wanted to go to Cali, clearly. And now he's in Cali after all these years of just kind of...
Wait, hold on just a second.
Sure.
What is this?
Your cap and gown.
Oh, my cap and gown. Yay. Sorry. Hi, Mom.
Tell
That is Kyle.
That is
Hi,
your ever
Kyle.
son. What's up, Mom? Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, too.
Congrats
Mom.
on the
Thank
cap
you.
and gown. I'm glad we got...
Thank you. Have
It
fun.
says open and hang immediately.
Okay, well, you want to open it and hang it? You want to open
Seems
it and
very
hang
excited
it
about this
immediately
cap and
for me,
gown.
please? Mom, thank you, Mom. I appreciate you. Be out in a moment.
A cameo from the Warner Brothers podcast mother in this episode. Was not expecting that.
No.
Cap and gown. Where was I? Ben Simmons, yes. So Ben Simmons going to Cali. He's been, I don't want to say producing, but he's been productive this season with the Nets. He's obviously had his breaks here and there for injury or whatever Ben Simmons takes off for basketball. So I could see a resurgence with him. I mean, he's being paid. He's still being paid a lot of money. I don't remember if this is his last year of the deal or if next year is. I think this is his last year. So I think he's a free agent coming out of this season. He's finally in Cali like he wants to be. He's on a good team. And he's one of these players who is, he still has all-world talent. He's still an elite athlete. He's still a good rebounder. He's still a great passer. Yeah, I already like this Clippers team as far as a top 6 team, as far as, staying out of the play-in. And, of course, we just talked about Kawhi. But I could see Ben Simmons actually producing for them a little bit. Crazy as it sounds.
You know what? You're not even wrong on that. He just upsets me. He should be a top 5 player in the league right now.
How about top 5? I mean,
He should be a top 5. Kyle.
There's people named Luka and Nikola Jokic.
Sorry, you're right. Top 5. He should be a top 10 player in the league right now.
Sure.
There's no reason. Sorry, top 5. You're right. The 5th spot's tough. But even then, there's no reason why he can't be Jason Tatum level of a player right now.
Sure.
Which is, a top 5 player essentially. So it's right there.
Yeah,
So like
he should be in the top 10 conversation. Like, yeah, he should be. He should
solidify,
have a
like
team that's built around him as a
he
passer.
did everything but shoot at about an A minus or better level. Like
Yeah.
rebounding, defense, pass,
Yeah.
dribble, like the handle for his size. Like he did everything, and then he just didn't shoot well. They're just shooting. Like he even could get to the basket at a good level, like at a fine level. He just didn't shoot well, and then just I don't even want to get. He just frustrates me so much. Like just like his career frustrates me. Like he could.
Hey, we should have seen it
literally-
coming. We should have seen it coming when at LSU he was more than happy not playing in the tournament. He was more than happy missing the tournament. He was more than happy, and that's what I think happened. I think they missed the tournament. They didn't enter the NIT, and he was like more than cool with it. He's clearly.
He was. They were under 500.
Yeah, yeah. And like you said, all the talent in the world, but he's another one who was just more than happy living the NBA lifestyle.
They were up a little above 500, sorry. But yeah, they weren't great. Go on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just, this has been said about him plenty of times. I mean, he's more than happy living the NBA lifestyle. I don't think he cares too much about his prospects as a player, because you're right, he could have been top 10, maybe even top 5. He was on a Hall of Fame level trajectory just as far as talent and his production went. And he was becoming someone who you could say was a top 5 to top 3 defensive player in the league, just a defensive weapon. He could play inside and outside defense.
He was my biggest takeaway. We watched him the 2019-2020 season, or the 2020-2021 season right before COVID.
That was 20.
So, wait, no, it'd be 1920. Sorry. That would be the 1920 season. We watched it right before COVID. He averaged 16, 8, and 8 that year, shooting 58% from the floor. And that was my biggest takeaway, was him in the second quarter. Embiid was on the bench, and he was just taking over the game at that point. The Celtics ended up blowing them out towards the end because Tatum and Brown went off, and that was a great, but he was the biggest takeaway for me, because I was like, man, he is 6'10", he's gliding. And just can take over a game.
Phenomenal.
Defensively and offensively at that point, because he was just getting downhill. And I was like, okay, that's impressive. Like, I gained more respect from him from that game alone. I mean, he came in the league averaging 16, 8, and 8.
Yeah.
That's hard to do. Like, that's just hard to do. And I don't know.
And about a year after that,
he could be an impact player. He could be an impact player for the Clippers. I actually think that he could be someone who could average them 10, 6, and 7, and be a guy who actually plays some quality defense. You don't shoot, and because the thing with Ben Simmons is if he's locked in defensively, you can now play a small ball lineup, and you don't just have to have a Zubac lineup too. Like you can go, because he can guard a lot of your fives that are in small ball. Like, obviously, he's not going to guard Jokic, but he can try to be a body for Jokic, but he can guard the fives in a small ball. Like when the Warriors put Draymond at the 5, you easily can combat that with Ben Simmons at the 5. Like when you have even other teams, like obviously the Lakers don't really have that much size, so any lineup that doesn't have Jackson Hayes on it, he can be on the floor. You have the Thunder, if they don't have Hartenstein on the floor, you can put him on Chet. That's not a big mismatch or anything like that. Like you can put him in a situation that if he's locked in defensively, he can just be your 5. And since he's not that good of a shooter, him at your 5, you get a extremely high level playmaker at your high post or in the dunker spot.
Yeah, I mean, he can put him at the dunker spot, let him go coast to coast. Yeah, he can't protect the rim at the 5, but he is someone who can just straight up, maybe not Jokic, because I don't think anybody really outside of Wemby can guard Jokic. He is one that he can guard one-on-one, right? Like he can't protect, but he's a good help defender. He can guard one-on-one. Still a tantalizing defensive prospect to me. Again, it's perimeter defense, post defense. He's got it both, help defense. He clearly does not want to be a star, but there's an elite role player in there somewhere if he wants it. And maybe he's just got to be in Cali for him to want it. We'll see. I still think he'll probably we'll get these seasons where he just sits for 25 games just to get off some fits on the bench. But I don't know. I could see the renaissance now that he's finally in Cali. I got some player movement things. I mean, this isn't really what I have left. Isn't really a I mean, they kind of go hand in hand. Okay, they're more player movement things. It isn't necessarily about the second half of the season, but I guess it's kind of in conjunction. All right, I do think Philly eventually shuts it down and shuts Embiid down. I don't know if you saw this, but the Sixers put out an article, or someone came out with an article about Embiid, and this was like right after the Eagles won a Super Bowl. It's probably intentional that it was that way, but it basically said Embiid, and we kind of knew this, is never going to be healthy again. That he shouldn't have played in the Olympics. Da 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 da. So I think they shut him down. I don't think Philly gets the play-in spot. I don't think they eventually get to the 8 or the play-in. I don't think any of that happens. I think they shut it down, shut him and Paul George down, and maybe come back another year. But Keenan, I started thinking about it last night, and I just got this vision. I can just see this. I can see it happening, right? I don't know if this year, I don't think necessarily this year is the last year for Embiid on the Sixers. But I think we're moving towards that. I think we're eventually moving towards a Sixers and Joel Embiid breakup. You know what team just constantly sticks out to me where I can just physically, I can picture him playing on this team?
I'm going to take a guess. Give me just a second.
Sure.
Oh, man.
Actually, there's two. There's two teams, but
so
one in particular.
I was going to guess, for some reason, I was going to guess the Lakers. That's going to be one of my guesses. And the other team, so I had the Lakers one, and then I'm going to have the Mavericks as two.
Interesting, but no. I can fully see him playing on the team that just in the city that just hosted All-Star Weekend. I can see him being on Golden State. I can see him getting 25 minutes a night in a reduced role, playing next to Steph and Jimmy Butler. I can see it. We just seen it with the Warriors, how desperate they are. They just went and got Jimmy Butler, who, out of all the stars in the league, you would say you cannot count on him the most in the regular season. And we know it's going to end badly, possibly, if it's going to end bad, right? That's why I thought the extension was crazy, because I think that goes into like his age 38 season for Jimmy Butler. Like, we just don't know how he's going to age. Doesn't seem like he's going to age well. But him and Embiid loved playing together. They seem to still be boys, for whatever that's worth. And it's going to end. And when it ends in Philly for Embiid, it's going to be because of all the stuff they said, ironically, that was the reason for Luka departing from Dallas or being shipped out of Dallas, right? Like, that's eventually going to be the downfall of Embiid. On top of that, he just signed an extension. So it's going to be already hard to trade him. You're only going to have limited partners there. And I don't even know if Golden State has the facilities to do this, right? I don't even know if they have the players to be able to trade for a Joel Embiid at that contract. But I can just wholeheartedly see, in a reduced role, Joel Embiid next to Draymond Green, next to Jimmy Butler and Steph. I can just picture it. I don't know if Golden State's able to actually make that trade without including Draymond.
They wouldn't. They'd have the trade would probably be Draymond, Kuminga, Pods, or Moody. They'd probably try to keep Moody because of his role. Pods, and then a couple firsts, and then maybe another piece depending on probably Buddy Hield.
Sure, and this could be 2 years down the line. Who knows? I'm not saying this is necessarily
I'm just saying, like, if they were to
offseason.
make that trade today, I think that would be probably the outlook of it.
Sure. I don't know. For whatever reason, I can see Embiid's second act in his career being. It would be a team like that, though. It'll be a contending team that is kind of desperate, that needs the big man help. I mean, Golden State fits all the criteria for that. The thing is, we just don't know with the new CBA and the trade rules if they can actually make it work. I could also see Boston sometime down the line as some sort of Porzingis replacement, again in a reduced role. But it's kind of, I don't know if you'd see that in division.
You know what I could see?
I
could see Phoenix. I could see them moving off of like Bradley Beal or Kevin Durant or something. I could see Phoenix.
Thing about Bradley Beal
I know he has
is
a no trade.
the no trade clause, which will be one of the biggest mysteries in the NBA, how or why he even got the no trade clause. Because if you go through the players in NBA history who've had a no trade clause in their contract, it's all like who's who of Hall of Famers, and then Bradley Beal. Like there's no correlation.
Right now in the league, it's him and LeBron. And LeBron makes sense. Why LeBron makes sense. Like, no, I'm like, don't trade me. Like, do whatever I want. Like, I get it. And then this Bradley Beal. But I could see the Suns making like a Kevin Durant move for it.
Well, actually, that was actually my next prediction. I do think whenever the Suns season wraps up, whether that's the first round, whether that's the regular season, which I believe it'll be the regular season, I think they fall off. I think Kevin Durant will have played his last game with the Suns this year, whereas I think Embiid may have a season or two left with the Sixers.
Yeah,
I think this is it for Kevin. Well, we should know it for sure. It's it for Kevin Durant because they tried trading him. They tried shopping him around, and we know how Kevin Durant runs anyway. I mean, he's asked out of Brooklyn. He wasn't happy in Golden State. Wasn't happy in OKC. Was ready for something new. Now they wanted to trade him before he was ready, and I would have been interested in like his prospects of staying in Phoenix anyway after this, just because it's been so unsuccessful. But you add to the fact that they already tried shopping him. Nah, I don't see it. And the two teams, this one's interesting to me, Keenan. One's Miami. Miami's just, they'll always be in a position to trade. So I could see them being in the market for Kevin Durant. But the team that really intrigues me, and again, this is something I can picture, but I don't know if they'd actually include the players in the deal. Do you want to take a guess at this too?
I'm guessing the Spurs.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly the team. But good guess. How'd you know?
Wait, what was that? Sorry.
That's exactly the team.
Mm-hmm.
How'd you know?
I remember listening to you and Brandon talk about it, and you thought that he possibly could go there, and then I thought you thought more about it in there. And if you're trading Kevin, you did. You said that they have now room.
I don't even remember saying that. That's crazy.
You now have room, that they have room, that they might even get a Devin Booker trade or a Kevin Durant trade because they saved so many picks. I mean, you have the Atlanta 2027 pick. You've got, obviously, depending if they were to do it this offseason before the draft, you have this 2025 pick, but I don't know. It depends on where the pick would be, obviously. For some reason, if they got like the one pick, they're not trading that Scooper flag. But and then they have a Mavericks pick in 2031, pick swap in 31, but they have 6 of their next 7 first-round picks. They have a Boston pick in 28 or a pick swap with them. So, like, the Spurs have a mass amount of picks that they could move off of, plus, like, 15 seconds if they have, like, a crazy amount. And then you could get rid of Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson. The trade would probably look like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, a first, maybe that Hawks 2027 first, and then a Spurs 2030 first for Kevin Durant. That would probably be it. You get 2 first-round picks out of it, and then you would have your future still in Wemby and Fox. You still would have Stephon Castle, but then you'd have your now in Kevin Durant. Chris Paul is a free agent at the end of the season. He might re-sign for a minimum contract to see if he could win a championship. And then you still can go 8 deep. You still have Julian Champagny who can shoot, Charles Bassey who's a fine backup at the big. So it would probably look like Vassell, Keldon Johnson, and a couple firsts for Kevin Durant, especially because he's older. So you'd only get really 2 years of him, 3 years, maybe. But
2 things. A few things actually. One, I completely don't remember saying that, even though we did just record last week. I do not. I remember talking about Devin Booker, but that's crazy that I don't even remember suggesting this trade last week. Secondly, if that were the trade, Vassell and Keldon Johnson, I think that's a terrible trade on the Suns' part. I would want more than that for Kevin Durant. So, but again, these trade rules and everything is so weird.
They're not getting Castle. They're not getting Fox. They're not getting Wemby.
Course,
so essentially,
yeah.
So I'm just saying. I'm just saying those are your 3 untouchables. So if it was going to be someone, maybe switch out Keldon Johnson for Jeremy Sohan. Like that would be.
I'd give
Devin
up.
Vassell is your best player.
I'd give up.
They're not.
Even for like 3 or 4 seasons of Durant, because I do think Durant could play 4 years at a high level. He showed no signs of slippage. He's like what you said with Steph. He can't carry a team to a contender status, right now as a franchise player. But I mean, man, he can still defend. He can still get a shot at an elite level. Still, I could see him aging gracefully. Is aging gracefully, I should say. So I don't know. I don't know. It would be a weird package. And again, I think completely he is getting shopped this summer. So, but I could see the Spurs for some reason. But now that you mention it, like the package is a little weird. I would give up all the young guys and probably 2 or 3 first round picks.
They it just depends on how much they value. The Spurs aren't going to give up too much. Like the organization just doesn't like to do that. So
Right.
it would be.
I wouldn't give up
At
Castle,
max-
but I'd give up Sohan in addition to Keldon Johnson and Vassell.
The max would be, and they'd definitely be fine giving up Keldon Johnson and Vassell, and it might be so. They might give us something too. So they would probably, actually, to be honest with you, it might be Harrison Barnes, Vassell, and Keldon Johnson, because they would want to keep Sohan. I know. I'm just like from reading more into the Spurs and kind of how they seem like they want to keep Sohan too. So like they would try to do that and then throw in 2 first and maybe 2 first and like a second would be probably what they would do for that. For the Suns, I feel like that's what you would get, especially if Kevin Durant's in a position where he wants to leave and his contract's up here soon. Like I think that might be one of the best offers you're going to get unless you get someone else. Because I mean, Vassell can get you 20 a game. You'd have Barnes, obviously, veteran who can play on the outside. Keldon Johnson off the bench is fine. First round picks, you're trying to build around Devin Booker. So I know what you're saying, though, because you're still like, if you think you have a superstar talent still who can be a superstar for 2 years and then be a very good player for 2 years, you would want more than that. But
yeah, aging stars are tricky. I mean, what would you trade?
That's
for
what I would
LeBron
say the
over
trade would be
Kevin Durant?
personally.
Yeah,
It
it's hard.
also depends on the team. Depends on the team too. Like a team like Golden State, I would trade, like saying LeBron per se, I would trade Kuminga, Pods, couple firsts for LeBron. Another team probably wouldn't give up a player like Kuminga because they would have their like it depends on what you value him and like how you try to value your future. Like the Warriors are in a win now, like they'll trade whatever, and I think to get LeBron, they'd be like, we can almost guarantee a championship in our minds with LeBron. So let's just do this and guarantee a chip.
I just thought of a team who does have the facilities to trade for Kevin Durant, like who's got the pieces.
The Rockets
absolutely do it. The Rockets do. The Rockets for sure, but the Dallas Mavericks. Mavericks for sure could give up one of their bigs, maybe a swing player, a Dinwiddie. Go get Kevin Durant. Got picks, apparently, and go get Kevin Durant. Pair him with, first of all, the Kyrie experience again, but you got AD, you got Lively. That would be super interesting.
It would be.
We talked last podcast about all the player movement and such. It really sucks that Kevin Durant's one of these guys that's going to be like on 5 teams and like does not have an identity necessarily to each team. Like he'll probably have his jersey retired in Golden State, as well as OKC. And I think the longest tenured one would still be OKC for sure. But it's like we're so far removed from that. I don't even think of him as a former Oklahoma City Thunder. You know what I mean? It just seems like, I don't know, just kind of like LeBron. LeBron's going to have his jersey retired probably at all these places, but like he definitely does not seem like a Laker. And he no longer seems like he even played for the Heat. Like the whole Heat experience seems so far away. He'll obviously always be identified as a Cav to some degree, but he does not feel like a Laker the way Luka is going to feel like a Laker to me.
No, not at all. 1, because Luka's going to hopefully be a Laker for their sake for the next decade plus. 2, because he was traded there and didn't just choose there. So like it wasn't his choice. Like he just traded to the Lakers, and I feel like Luka's going to be a Laker. Like LeBron, if he would have just stayed in Cleveland the second time around. I mean, if he did first time around, that's another conversation. But just the second time around, if he would have stayed there, didn't leave, everything would have been, you would be like, okay, so he went to the Heat, he had that Heat stint, and then just went back to Cleveland. And you just think of him as a Cav, and
it's interesting stuff.
It is. That's why Steph's cool. because Steph's obviously, unless he does something like a late career, but he's always going to be a Warrior. Like even Clay could play for 5 different teams now. He's always going to be a Warrior.
Always gonna be a
you know
Warrior,
what I mean? Like
for sure.
he's like at that point now. Draymond, same thing, always going to be a Warrior. And Clay might play for multiple teams. He might go like the Ray Allen route, where obviously Ray Allen was a Buck and then a Sonic, and then he got to the Celtics and then the Heat. So like you might get Klay Thompson, who gets that role, that bench role that comes off just as a shooter for like a couple other teams, just like in his career. But he will always know him as a Warrior.
You know what? The more and more I'm thinking about it, the more and more I could see this Durant to the Mavericks thing happening. The way I could see
him
Embiid
in Dallas. I could see him in Dallas.
Yeah, the way I can see Embiid in a Warriors uniform with all those guys, like now I could see Durant being the final piece to this weird ass Nico Harrison puzzle that he wants, and like could work. By the way, could work. This version of a healthy Mavs team is like potentially a top 4 seed. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I can't wait to see all this unfold down the stretch. So, your finals gun to your head right now, still OKC Boston.
OKC Boston, with OKC winning in 7.
I think I would have Denver versus Boston or the Cavs. And if you put a gun to my head, I would say the Celtics Nuggets would be my gun to the head. But I think the Cavs really do have almost as good of a shot as Boston, especially being the 1 seed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the combination of Mobley and Allen, that almost like it balances out the size factor. Because they got a small backcourt with Garland and Mitchell, and you don't like that matchup, right? With the Jays and the size that the Celtics have, but they are so, including DeAndre Hunter, they've got such size with DeAndre Hunter, but of course Mobley and Allen, the 2 7-footers. You got enough to combat there, and they play good enough team defense in general to where Garland's not necessarily a miss.
So with Boston, I've said this all year, talking to Clayton, who's a Boston Celtics fan. The Celtics are good enough to get to the conference finals without Porzingis, which is why I was never in the position like they need to try to rush him back or anything. Like they're good enough to get to the conference finals without Porzingis. They can't get to the finals. They can't win it all without him. So like Porzingis is going to be needed against the Cavs and will be needed against whomever comes out of the West, like regardless of who it is, because he's either going to be the difference against someone. Say Golden State, just to say a team that was smaller. Like he could be the difference because he is just a big body who can switch out, and like now you have Draymond on him, he's going to shoot over Draymond, or he's going to be the X factor because he's going to be on a Jokic kind of thing. So like I've always said, like with Porzingis, with the Celtics, just ease him. Like they're easing him in, and that's all you need because really you can get to the conference finals without him. Like if he didn't play in that first round or even against the Knicks, I think they could beat the Knicks without Porzingis. I don't think they could beat the Cavs without Porzingis. I think they really need him in that series because at that point, then it's just, they could theoretically. I don't want to say they couldn't. They're really talented. They could, but like it would make it much more difficult because then now you're having to put big minutes on Luke Cornett because they have the 2 bigs and they have bigs that can play team defense well. So I think that would just make it tough. But I think you very much need him for both.
I think you need him for sure for the finals. I think they could beat the Cavs without him, but I think it would be like a 7-game series, and you'd need every bit of greatness that is in Jason and Jalen and the rest of the guys.
I was about to say you would
need
Jason.
You need like a 25 a game from Jalen, and 28 a game from Jason, and a couple for
they could. They could, but I would become hesitant to want to pick them. Like if they're fully healthy, I'm taking Celtics regardless.
Yeah.
Not without Porzingis, I'd probably still take them, but like I would be scared of that pick. I wouldn't bet it. I would bet it with Porzingis. I wouldn't bet it with Bauer.
If for some reason Porzingis is out and that's what we get in the conference finals, I would favor the Cavs. I'd favor the Cavs, but I'd be scared to death of the Celtics because the Celtics definitely have the facilities to do it, right? They got the players to do it. They got the roster. Again, the 5 would be the mismatch would be the size, but it would be an excellent coaching matchup.
Calling Luke Cornett on tough minutes, and then you would have to. Jason Tatum would be. you would need him to play elite inside defense. So, and that would be
I mean, they got Cornette, but they also got what's his name? It's Kada plays backup. He
yeah, Kada has been playing well. Yeah, so
he's
that would be the other person. That would be the other person, but like that's tough to ask those two guys to be the really itinerary for instance.
I honestly think it'd be one of those series where whoever's got home court wins, and then it would just fall on the game 7. They'd switch at home, it'd go 2-2, 1-1, and then game 7 for it all. Which in that case you would kind of favor the Celtics because they've been in so many of those games, but. Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'd slightly favor the Cavs. I would slightly favor the Cavs. But
I don't think Cleveland could go into Boston and win a game 7. I do think Boston could go into Cleveland, which is why they would have that little edge. Like where I could still feel okay, but I'd be shocked if they went into Cleveland and won, or they went into Boston and won a game 7 in Cleveland, just because Boston's been in that moment so many times. But I mean, again. It would come down to like Donovan Mitchell's been in multiple game 7s and put up 50 in playoff games. So it'd have to be one of those Donovan Mitchell, like one of explosions. Like, okay, like I'm putting this team on just because I think Boston knows the moment too well. But yeah, Boston, you're Denver, Boston right now, probably Boston in 7. I'm OKC, Boston with OKC in 7 as of right now.
Yeah. If you would ask me a few weeks ago, I probably would have said OKC, but I'm really worried about the second score thing with them.
Denver's playing well.
And Boston, it's funny because I mean, no one's really come close to repeating this decade. They're definitely in the best spot for it, but it just seems like for some reason it's not going to happen. Like the trend's going to continue. That being said, if they got matched up with Denver, a healthy Boston, I'd have to favor. No matter the level that Jokic is playing at, just because of their size at the wings and the guards.
I think that Denver matches up with OKC very well, but I would favor OKC over Boston before Denver, just because I think a healthy Boston team can do their best with Jokic, and they have 3 legitimate players who can give problems to Jamal Murray and Brown, White, and Holiday. You wouldn't even have to really put Brown on him, but he could. So, like, I think that they would be able to. They've got the depth
advantage for sure.
They can match the depth, and you could. I think that they would match. I think that would probably be a 6-game series in Boston in 6. Honestly, they could get 7. Jokic can do whatever.
And you know what? I think OKC matches up much better with Boston than any team in the West, right? Maybe outside of the Clippers. Clippers match up very well with Boston too, actually. Yeah. But man, I think in a final series, I think Boston would little brother them. I really do. I think Boston. I don't know. I think that's also a good matchup for Boston. The same way they would need a second scorer there. Man, if Jalen Williams is not if Jalen Williams isn't producing for you, Boston can just.
I actually think, just thinking about it too, I actually think the Warriors now with Jimmy, if you have a locked in Jimmy, especially defensively, can match up with the Celtics kind of well.
Yeah. They got enough size there.
I understand, like, you have your guys like Quentin Post who can just shoot threes, but even the fact that he can kind of be in there kind of matters. Obviously, Draymond's a very smart defender. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, he's just been a guy, but like Trace Jackson Davis is like a legitimate guy who could, at least he can rebound and block shots, so like he can actually defend the paint. And then you have Jimmy and Draymond, so you have Tatum and Brown, people who can kind of guard there. And then obviously you'd have Steph on Derek White. You would have, depending, maybe Moody on Drew Holiday or whatnot. Like, they could actually defend him decently well.
By the way,
I would favor the Celtics are winning that series to me, but like I think they could actually defend him pretty well.
It's another thing Draymond said last night. I completely forgot because he said so much shit.
Yeah, he guaranteed a championship.
Predicted a championship.
He guaranteed it. And then they sold Steph afterwards. And he was like, "Hey, Steph, I liked his answer. He was like, yeah, we deal with expectations here. We welcome expectation. We're good." I was like, all right, Steph, that's a professional. That's a guy who's like, man, I have Draymond Green on my team, and I know he's gonna say crazy things when he's in front of a mic. So whatever it is, I gotta back it up. Like whatever check he's got to cash, I got to do it. But all right, I have nothing else in this.
So before we go, Keenan, why don't you give me one sweeping bold prediction for the stretch run right here?
One bold prediction for this stretch run. I don't think anything so far I've said would have a bold prediction on it. I'm actually gonna give you one. I think the Celtics catch up to the Cavs and get the 1 seed.
Ooh, that's a bold one. That's a bold one. So you think
I don't
Cavs
think-
fall to the 2?
I think Cavs fall to the 2,
So
and
then
I
we
don't
get a
think it's because the
2-3.
Cavs are. I don't think the Cavs are because they're going to be bad by any means. I just think the Celtics are going to lock in. Like I'm not sure they lose more than 4 games, kind of thing. Like,
Isn't it
I
a
think they could
5-game?
end.
It's a 5-game gap, I believe, right now.
If 5.5, I think the Cavs could end 60-22, and Boston could end 61-21, kind of thing.
Okay,
Like,
so let's
I
say
think
that
they
does
could be-
happen. Let's say Boston goes to the 1, Cleveland to the 2, and then we get a Knicks Cleveland second round. Who's winning that second round matchup?
Cleveland in 7 because they're at home, but it'd be really tough.
Okay. We'd get another Brunson versus Mitchell matchup, which would be amazing. So,
But I'm not locking that in. That is just a thought right now. We're not locking that in because I do not feel confident in that. But I would probably lean Cleveland in 7.
and so
because they've been more consistent.
We going OKC Denver or OKC Golden State? Western Conference side.
Right now, I would have to say OKC Denver because I don't know what seed the Warriors are going to get to. And I'm interested to see how Kuminga looks like back with this roster. But right now, I would say OKC Denver. Yeah, and then obviously I think OKC, I think Denver will be the 2, OKC will be the 1.
Final question. Listen at all to Drake and Party?
A little bit. I haven't listened to the whole thing. Probably the first half to the song right after "Give Me a Hug." I'm a fan of the Superman Spider-Man song. I like that one a lot. I like "Deeper" with Party Next Door. That interlude, I like that. That interlude as well. That's more of a Drake album featuring Party, which then again made me think of Joe Budden's diss, where all everyone was a Party album. You keep stealing off a Party album to put it on your Party album. It just made me think because I thought it was gonna be both of them, but there's so many. There's only one song really with Party, with only Party and not Drake. And there's 4 or 5 with Drake with no Party or something like that, or something along those lines. And I just feel like on the song so far I've listened to, seems like it's a heavily Drake featured project, and Party is not as heavily featured, in my opinion. That's what I've heard so far.
Yeah, no, I agree. I will go more in depth with it this week, possibly with Brandon and maybe Duke. We'll see what we can get. But I finished the album. I was listening to it prior to the All-Star game, finished it after the All-Star game. I agree with you. It felt way more like a Drake album than I was anticipating. I thought Party mailed it in. I thought it was a lazy effort by Party. And it was both better than I anticipated and worse. I think I
also don't know why
wasn't.
Drake's taking shots at Joe Budden now.
Yeah, exactly. Why is Drake doing anything? Why is Drake?
You had your time. Budden was literally gunning for you in 2016, and then a year later you come out with your no shopping, where you're kind of throwing shots at him there when he's already kind of done with the beef, and then now you're just throwing random shots at him.
Yeah, they've been on this whole frenemy thing ever since that little beef, really, and I don't know, man. I mean, I said this before. I've said this multiple times when we've talked music since the beef, and it's just reaffirmed after this weekend. I don't need to hear from Drake. It was cool hearing him, and I thought he was more motivated than I expected. That's some of the better music I've heard since Her Loss from Drake, especially the first 7 tracks of that album I thought were standout. But I didn't need it. I really didn't need it, and I'm not being a hater when I say this. I do not. Drake put out such not only good music at his peak, but he was putting it out so often. He was featured so often. He always had a single, or he always had a Khaled single, even if he didn't have his own record out. I don't need to hear from Drake for at least a year, and preferably 2, but at least a year. I think I'd be like, oh, maybe I want to hear some Drake. I do.
And he's coming out in the summer.
I'm sure he is. And that's the thing. He's going to come out in the summer, and people are going to talk about it. And people were trying to talk about what was the one that he went at Joe at? You just mentioned it. Give Me a Hug, yeah. Which is a good song, really good song. And people were kind of gassing it up, I thought, Friday night after the release. I don't know, it was cool, and he spoke on some things, but like we all just went through it and lived through it together. We just saw Kendrick do what he did to Drake. We saw the outcome of it. We saw Drake be on with streamers. We seen Drake do his whole Instagram thing. Like, we get it. You got beat. He even said, like, as recently, I think, as Super Bowl week, that like the war is not over. I'm still coming. Like, bro, just take the L, move on, just go sit somewhere. And that was good music. That was better music than I was anticipating from Drake. From Party, it was not. So I'll say overall, it both overwhelmed and underwhelmed, or exceeded my expectations because I didn't really know what to expect. But if you're telling me that Drake and Party are making an album and one of those songs are going to be just them singing in broken Spanish, I don't want to hear that shit. And then the track, I don't know what it is. Whatever track immediately came after the Spanish song, which I don't even know if you made it to, Keenan, but it's fucking trash. The song that immediately follows that is kind of trash too, like big trash. And there's no reason for Drake and Party, with all the records they've come up with that we'll never hear, there's no reason for them to put garbage songs on any album because they are two obviously more than quality artists who have made great music together. So
It's Nokia was the one after Meet Your Padre, which I'm assuming is the Spanish one.
I think that is the Spanish one. Yeah,
It makes sense because it's featuring a guy Chino Pacas.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's the one, but
yeah. And it seemed like I liked
haven't gotten to
Nokia,
that.
but maybe Nokia was garbage. Yeah, Nokia sucked. Yeah, I think I did not like those two back to back. But yeah, I'll get into it more in depth. But again, it was cool. It was cool. Like they did their thing. They didn't kill it. They didn't underwhelm either. But I mean, again, if Drake sat down for 2 years, a year and a half, I would be more than okay with that.
Well, if you attack a beef like this and you just leave it, and then you let it sit, you will let Kendrick go on his tour, you let Kendrick do the Super Bowl, you let all of that happen, you let Kendrick just take the spotlight, you take your L, take it home, make the best music you possibly can, and try to and then like the first time they hear from you is in a year and a half, like say like 7 months, 8 months after Kendrick's whole thing's died down. Then you're like, okay, now I'm excited to hear Drake. Like this is the first time we're hearing from him from this. We miss him. Like, and especially if you come out and you put out like a fire single, and like in that single, I'm fine if you address the beef in the sense, not in the sense of like I'm still gunning for you kind of thing, but like
a line or two,
I understand it. Yeah, like a line or two, kind of like just put it to bed, close the book on it. Like you kind of how like Kendrick did in Whacked Out Murals. Like he kind of addressed everything that was going on, but like he didn't like stick on one thing. He wasn't like the 2 lines about the Super Bowl and then like kind of just let it be. You do that, and then that's your just single of it. Then you go and then you put out another single that's going to be what the album sounds like, and then you put out. I don't know. That just seems like the smart move to go about it. You make people miss you. You make people actually want to listen to you, and then you put out high quality music, and then people they never forget about the beef, of course. But I mean, with today's culture, it dies down a lot, and not a lot of.
If he showed us he's done with the beef, we're done with the beef. The more he keeps alluding to it and poking at Kendrick and keeps alluding to stuff that happened 6 months ago, then we're gonna keep throwing it back in his face, right? So, the public, I should say, is gonna keep throwing it back in his face. But it is also on top of that, like I said, it seems like 2016 on, probably up until this point, or probably up until For All the Dogs, we got so many releases from Drake and so much features and prominently featured music from Drake. Like he was just everywhere. That I really
2016 Views, 2017 More Life, 2018 Scorpion, 2019 something. 2019 there was Dark Lane demo tapes and Certified Lover Boy, and then like there's just been an album a year, and like his albums are like 15 to 16 songs. Her Loss, 2021.
Yeah, they're all long albums. Exactly.
There's just been so much music.
This Party album was way too long too. I did not need 21 tracks. 14 would have sufficed.
To be quite honest with you, if after Give Me a Hug, I don't know what the rest of it was, but that's 10 songs. I would have been satisfied. I was satisfied with my listen after 10. I got what I needed out of it. I haven't listened to the other 10, so I don't know if something's good, bad in between, but I'm just saying I'm satisfied with the 10.
It's good music, but again, disappointed in Party. Party really seemed like he he was on his NBA player at the All-Star game flow. He was just kind of mailing it in.
Yep.
Shoot some threes, I'll dunk here and there, but that's about it. Listen, that's all we have for today. This was part 2. Part 1 again was us reviewing All-Star weekend. Part 2, you got some predictions for the NBA stretch run right here from myself and Keenan. Keenan, hope to have you back more consistently soon. But we'll obviously talk about that. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. Look out for some more content on the WBP side, and we will be back.